So today we're going to be talking about the truth about having enough ways to pay for senior living. I want you to, well, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm really bad about that. I know a lot of you in this room, and we see each other frequently, but there are a lot of people here that are here for the first time. So I want you to know why I'm standing on this stage and why this is important to me. My name is Becky Seda, and I am a local real estate agent. I do have I'm at my CSHP. There are 3 of us in Oklahoma City that have decided to specialize in senior living transitions and downsizing and things like that. So I'm a certified senior housing professional. I've been doing that for a long time, and the conversations that we have in this room are typically birthed out of conversations that I'm having constantly with clients. And I have become passionate about making sure that you have information before it's an acute situation, because when I watch people walk through situations in a fast pace, it's so nice, the ones who have actually taken the time to educate themselves about what's out there. There are a lot of misconceptions in a lot of different areas, and through Senior Living Truth Series, I feel like we have a safe place to talk about those things together, so that if it doesn't apply to you, but you talk to somebody and you hear those clues, sometimes you have enough information to point somebody. So this is a community where we help each other, we're proactive, and we just create a safe space for learning and support. So, okay, what today is and what it is not. We're going to have some honest conversations, some practical guidance and compassionate insight. This is not a sales presentation. My panelists are going to talk, they do have, obviously they're business owners, so they do have information about their particular communities and areas of work, but this is not a sales presentation. This is something where you can just take the information and fit it to where you need it in your life. It is not a one-size-fits-all. Senior Living Truth Series is never a one-size-fits-all. We are such proponents of what is right for you, what is right for your family. We just want to provide you good, clear information and a safe space to go to. And obviously, no pressure to decide. Let's just take a poll of the room. How many of you are planning to age in place? You're going to stay in your home till they carry you out. Yeah, there's always several. Okay, very good. Very good. And how many of you are thinking when the time comes you would like to live in a community of some sort, a senior community of some sort? Several of those. Yes. Okay, perfect. So we have a wide range in this room, and sometimes different hands were raised even in married couples. Sometimes the husband absolutely wants to stay, and sometimes that wife really wants to stop cleaning the bathroom, right? So, and that's okay. This is a safe space for those conversations. I do want to talk to you for just a minute. I want you to kind of reminisce with me for just a minute and think in your head. You don't have to answer out loud. But when someone says senior living community, what do you automatically think? Yeah. Nursing home. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people think that's a nursing home. Don't send me to a home. How many have ever made a promise to somebody, I'm not going to send you to a home? Yeah. Lots of people. Some people automatically think there's no way I can ever afford that. That's another thought that comes into their head immediately. Some people think my kids are just trying to force me to do that. And so all of those things we're going to talk about today. A lot of people think that they can't afford it. And that is why this conversation matters, because if this is something that you want to do or may find yourself needing to do in the future, I really, really want you to have a conversation about what does affording to live in a senior community look like. Many people are going to wait too long to plan. I see that a lot. So as one of only 3 certified senior housing professionals in Oklahoma City, you can imagine I get called by senior placement services frequently. I get called by senior communities, rehab hospitals. We get calls from people who, this is an immediate situation, and then we step in. And let me tell you, the difference between someone who has waited too long to plan versus someone who has a plan in place is a totally different journey for them. And we can do it either way, we do, but it's a lot more enjoyable if you at least have a direction and some information. And then many questions are also family questions. This is a conversation that we need to have with our families, because if you find yourself unable to make a choice, you need to have talked to your family about this. All right, let's bring our panelists up, please. And I want to tell you, as they're making their way onto the stage, we had we did have a fourth panelist, because I wanted to talk to you guys about 55 plus, but she was very, very ill. And so we did not want her to join us and get the rest of us very ill, because no one has time for that. So I was talking to my panelists before we got started today, and we think we can cover 55 plus pretty well. We've all got pretty good knowledge, and we can answer questions about those. So Lori, if you don't mind, if you'll just go ahead and start, introduce yourself and tell us why you're here.
My name is Laurie Elzo. I'm with First National Bank. We have, our headquarters is in Chickasha, but we have banks here in Southwest Oklahoma City. I work in trust services at the bank, and that's been my whole career at First National. And in trust services, we work with individuals as either a trustee or a guardian, a personal representative. And in our role as trustee often, we're involved in the decision-making about what the next step looks like, whether it's hiring somebody to come in at home and taking care of the payroll, or helping them make the move to their next stop. And so we're often involved in those conversations. But I have a fun fact before we go on. Becky and I went to Disney World together the very first time we ever went.
Yes.
Okay, so.
I think that was like 1995.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm responsible for all of your traveling, I
Oh,
think.
thanks. I do love Disney World. So thank you, Lori, for sparking that.
I love that. Well, my name is Julie Davis. I work for Concordia Life Plan Community. We're in Northwest Oklahoma City. We are a CCRC life plan community, which we'll get into a little bit more about. But I have worked there for over a decade. But prior to that, I worked in senior living for a single-site, family-owned community that was a luxury apartment complex, 55 plus. So I definitely have some insight on that. So happy to share that. So I've been in the business for a little over almost 20 years. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer.
And I'm Jennifer Atchley. I work at Village on the Park, which is just a couple miles up the road. We are independent living, assisted living, and memory care. I have been there for 16 years. But I did 10 of those years in our life enrichment activity department. So my passion in the senior living realm is socialization, staying active, having a great time with your friends while you're getting older.
Yeah,
so.
I love that. And I have been to both of your communities that you're at, and you are so busy there that it makes me tired. So I love that. I think it's great. Well, before we get started, I'd like to make sure that we are all operating kind of on a level playing field, because a lot of terms get thrown around with when we start talking about senior communities. And so I thought it would be beneficial to you if we talked about each, and there's a term missing on here that that was a misstep for me, and that is a CCRC. So I would like we're gonna add one of those on there, and I want you to write that on your white paper, CCRC, because it's important that you know what those are as well. Okay, so active adult community, an active adult community, that is typically a patio home. So you could purchase a patio home, but so we've got patio home communities that are not necessarily aged, but because of the amenities and the cost of the HOA and what they provide, that's what they tend to go towards. And those are going to be that Springs at Native Plains and things like that, where it's a home that's shrunk down. It's a patio home. Typically, the HOA pays for your yard care, but you are still responsible for the interior maintenance of your home, the roof, and things like that. And then there's some condo communities that you can purchase, and the HOA does take care of the exterior maintenance. So there's some different levels of I can purchase a home and live in a community of people like like me, but I'm still a homeowner. And then also in that active adult category are going to be your leased communities, like your albums, and I'm blanking right now, I should have made a list. I'm sorry, Belmont Cove.
Yeah.
Belmont Cove is a really good one. So those leased communities, they're going to be taking care of your interior and exterior maintenance similarly to if you were renting an apartment, but they're going to have, but typically those leased communities are 55 plus. So that's really the difference that you're going to see. It's relatively rare to find a community where you can purchase a home that is designated as 55 plus. It's more that that's the direction that it just goes because of the amenities. But when you get into the leased communities, then you really start seeing those age restrictions on the leased communities. Independent living, Julie, you want to take independent living for me?
Yeah, sure. So independent living is typically going to range. You're going to have independent apartment complexes that really are strictly apartment complexes. It's just age restricted as to who your neighbors are. So that doesn't necessarily provide transportation or meals or anything like that. It's just that you know your neighbors aren't going to be having a crazy rager party or teenagers running everywhere, whatever. Right. But then there are also higher end or more inclusive type independent living, and they provide transportation. They have a full-time life enrichment person. They usually have outings and things like that with a bus. They have a dining room and all of that, housekeeping, all the things, and that type of community, that's the community I worked at in Dallas. So.
Yes, and I think what I'll say about independent living is the difference between that active adult and the independent living is that the active adult, you're typically you're doing your own meals and taking care of your own meals, and then when you make that switch to independent living, many times at least one meal is provided for, and many times more. And so if you think of, and independent living can be part of more communities, right? Like so like for instance, both Jennifer and Julie, their communities have different levels of care, and independent living is one of them. But then there are also communities where independent living is the only thing that they offer, such as Southwest Mansions, which is one of our education partners, and they are purely independent living. So there's a lot within that. Now, Jennifer, do you want to take assisted living? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what assisted living is?
Sure. So assisted living is regulated by the state. We are helping with activities of daily living. You might hear them called ADLs. Those are things like medication management and shower assistance and getting dressed for the day. And they're going to include all of the amenities that an independent living community would include, like all of your meals and your housekeeping and your laundry and things like that. But there's also going to be a healthcare staff that is there 24/7 right there in the hall with you, that's going to be there at your beck and call, really. You might have a call button that you wear or a call button on the wall, and that staff is going to be there if you have an emergency or a fall, but also if you just need help out of your chair or need help in the bathroom or something like that.
I think independent living and assisted living, those terms get interchanged a lot.
They really
Have you
do.
found that? Have
Yes.
you guys found that as well, that people will say, my family member needs assisted living, but you find that really it's independent still?
Exactly, yes. People will call all the time thinking that they're looking for assisted living, and really they just need cooking and cleaning. That's independent living. And sometimes even if they need maybe the medication management piece of it, or they maybe even need help with shower assistance, we could still do independent living for that and just have that help come into the independent apartment. And most communities have some sort of resource for that.
Perfect. And memory care, that's pretty self-explanatory. That is when you start to have some cognitive decline that changes the way, so it changes your safety and changes some of your needs. So CCRC, remember we wrote that down. I'm gonna let Julie just quickly kind of tell us what a CCRC is and what that means.
Sure. So Continuing Care Retirement Community is what that stands for. Continuing Care Retirement Community. And there are different types of CCRCs. Concordia is a life plan CCRC, which means that we offer benevolent care. So when people choose to live in our community, they would have the opportunity to have care for life. They have a contractual guarantee that even if they outlive their assets, we will take care of them. Not all CCRCs are that. So it's just making sure that we're clear on the terminology
Yep.
and the different types of contracts. But they are all on one campus typically, or closely associated, and you get priority to transition through the community should your care needs change.
Perfect. So we will be taking questions at the end, but did that clear it up for anybody? Yes, a little bit. Yeah, I think that was really helpful. Perfect. Okay, so let's get into it, just so that we're all on a level playing field here. So truth number one, the price tag is not the whole decision. So we will talk about some costs, but as you can see, we have a wide variety of communities, and so obviously memory care is going to cost something different than assisted living, which is going to cost something different than independent living. All of those things are very different. CCRCs have different, so this is not something that we can stand at the front of the room and say it's going to cost this much for you to live. It's more, these are the services. Remember, we're not one size fits all. So you think about the services that you want and that will be important to you, and then we can help guide you towards how much money you will need. So that's a very difficult question to answer from a main stage, because for every single different person in this room, the answer is a little bit different. But what we can tell you is that for the majority of the people that we run into, the price tag is not the whole decision. So we're going to talk a little bit about visible costs and invisible costs. Jennifer, when you're sitting down and talking to people, and Julie, you're next, so think about your answer.
Okay.
When you're sitting down and talking to people, what costs do families typically forget about when they're talking to you?
As far as what they're paying for now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people don't add up what it looks like to live in their home. Even if their home is paid for, you still have to think about insurances and taxes, lawn care, maintenance, pest control, housekeeping, meal deliveries, gas, all of the bills. I don't think any of us realize how much we pay on a daily basis to live in our homes. So yeah, I think when you really think about all of these things that you have to also worry about making sure they're all paid, it is very, it relieves a lot of stress for a senior to know that I don't have to do any of that anymore. All of that's going to be included, and not only the adding up of all of those things is included in one price, but also the responsibility of paying all of those things is one price.
Yeah. Julie, what do you find people forget about?
Well, I would agree with everything that Jennifer said. So that, and then the additional thing would be that we don't think about the cost of burden. We don't understand that when we typically view an idea or concept of changing, whether it's going to college or it's downsizing or whatever, we think of it as we are right now. But we don't think about what it might look like if it's not in the same situation. So if a spouse becomes sick or passes away, or an adult child moves, or there are other costs that get involved in our decision making, and we don't think about those.
Yeah.
So that would be all that I would add to that.
Yeah. So Lori, sorry about that. I know that you don't work at Community, so you just had to sit patiently for us.
Yeah.
But this is something that you talk to people about. So when somebody comes to you and they're starting to, think about their finances and their wealth management and all of that, tell me what questions do you ask someone about thinking about their home versus moving?
Well, we want to make sure that, just like we've addressed it, that they're safe. And usually when we're starting to have this conversation, something has happened. There's been a fall, or they're having trouble with their medication. So something has happened. So we start to talk about that. And there are options. We have a lot of our bank clients that choose to bring in home health care, which is can be a very good option, but is also very, that will run from $20 to $35 an hour if you pay a service. If you pay somebody individually, then you have to make sure that you have the right insurance and workers' comp insurance, and that you're doing the right withholding. So there's a lot of bookkeeping that goes along with that people just think, I'll have my neighbor come over and give her $20, and it's really it's not that easy to do that. So lots of people are bringing somebody in, but that's not, there's that in itself can be very expensive, and the details are important.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had a client one time that did just that. She had somebody come in, and she had a few rooms of her house that she hadn't been able to go in, I mean, probably a decade. I mean, she hadn't been able to go, she had kind of a step down into they used it as a den, but it led to the laundry room, so she hadn't been able to go there for several years. And the person that she had asked to come over was taking advantage of her, and she didn't know, because she couldn't even go into that room, so she didn't know things were missing. She didn't know, it was a bad deal. So yeah, making sure that you have the money set aside for the right person is really important. Okay, so let's talk about maybe some invisible costs. Like, what do you have conversations, Lori, with people about? Here's what you need to think about as far as like what you're not paying for as part of your home, but you probably are going to have to think about in the future.
I think just like you mentioned, most people don't have a good sense about what it does cost to live at home, but as you age, unfortunately, lots of times your community gets smaller. Your friends that you've relied on in the past, they're not as they're in the same position that you are, and they're not as accessible or available as you thought that they might be. If your children live in a different town, you're asking a lot of them to make regular trips to where you are. So obviously, we know about people, falls and illnesses and all the things that go along that. Lots of times when I'm talking to people, they're afraid that they don't maybe recognize that they're afraid, but they're starting to feel really uneasy about being in their homes.
Yeah.
And that wears on people.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. What are some maybe under our invisible, so like isolation, caregiver burnout, safety risks, nutrition, things like that? What are some, how do you broach that conversation, the two of you? Julie, you want to start?
Yeah, I think that the conversation I typically have, jokingly, somebody will say, I'm going to live with my daughter, and I'm like, does she know that? Like, have you had a conversation? So that's a good place to start if you haven't.
We're going to talk about that in July.
Exactly. So it's big enough for a whole topic. But in all seriousness, in a lot of times that works. If that's your plan to move in with a loved one or whatever, and which we'll talk about in July, but there is an isolation factor, and moving to be near a loved one is maybe a right decision, but it could also not be a right decision.
Sure.
And so I think the cost of that is something that I want people to keep in mind. And then the other thing I would say too is there are more people that miss work caring for an elder loved one than a child. The impact on our workforce, the working worried, is insurmountable. It is a huge, huge, huge burden. So as far as invisible cost, that is something that we need to be aware of when we're relying on our family members to help.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
I would say I typically have conversations with people who are, maybe their families think it's a great idea for them to come to a community, but they would love to stay in their home. Our biggest competition is home by far. But I always tell them, you can stay in your home, and you can bring in the housekeeper, and you can bring in the maintenance guy, and you can bring in the lawn care service, and even meals and things like that. A lot of our amenities you could bring into your home, but you can't bring 188 of your closest friends for every meal and for fun. And so I really think that it's important for seniors to remember what fun feels like and what being around people feels like, and it just helps us to age better. And it's miraculous to watch people move into a community from being lonely, for any amount of time, and to watch them come back to life because they forgot what it felt like to be around people and to have lots of people to talk to and to speak to moving in with a family member. That's wonderful if it works, but your kids weren't necessarily created to be your social life, and you for them as well. So they're going to feel maybe a little bit burdened to be there for you all the time, but they aren't your best friends. They're not your peers. So for you to be able to be around people your age who like the same things you like, who are a good support system for you because they've been through what you've been through, it's just beautiful to watch. And it's really, I feel like people literally come back to life when they get to be surrounded by people that they know and love all the time.
I have to tell you, and you will know who I'm talking about, but I have a client right now that I had needed to get listing documents signed. So he had moved into Village on the Park, and his granddaughters are helping him with this process because sadly he has lost a spouse and both of his children. So his granddaughters are helping him through this process. And so I was headed to Village on the Park, and one of the granddaughters texted me and said, "Just come to the room. We're waiting for him in the room. He's eating dinner. He told us that there wasn't room at his table. His table was full and because he was having dinner with his friends and that we could wait for him in the room." And they were not mad. They were not offended. In fact, they were thrilled because he had been pretty isolated at home. And as you can imagine, losing all of your adult children and your spouse, that was very heavy. And so now he's just really too busy for them to.
My favorite thing is when the kids come to the front desk searching for their parent because they are not where they're supposed to be, and they're playing pool or they're having ice cream.
Too busy. And I think also that our culture has changed so much. Many of you, and I remember this as well, my sweet granny, who was my person, can I tell you, she was my person. She had family members around her, and one child would go have breakfast with her, and one child would have lunch with her, and they had this schedule where they surrounded her, and they took care of her and made sure that she was taken care of. That is becoming less and less possible in the culture that we live in. It just is. People are working longer, families are more spread out. I mean, just the sheer amount, think about your grandchildren and the sheer amount of activities that they are in. And so it is just a different, it's a different atmosphere, and the senior community as a whole, the senior living communities as a whole, they have answered that call. And so we are experiencing a change that a lot of people are not thinking about. So before we move to the next thing, I want rapid fire. I just want you to I want our attendees to have something to think about this week as far as what they should be looking for on expenses. When they are thinking about the money aspect of things, Lori, what do you think they should be thinking about this week as far as what they're spending that they may not realize that they're spending?
Internet. Is that
Internet?
Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Internet. Okay.
I was going to go a different direction.
Dude, that's
But,
fine. That's fine.
When you're looking at communities and you talk with the sales team, ask if what they're telling you is included is in the contract, or if it's just something that they're offering, because those are two different things.
Okay. All right.
That's good. Transportation. If you no longer drive, or you maybe shouldn't be driving anymore, think about how many times you're asking for help from family members to take you to a doctor's appointment or running errands. At our community and several communities, transportation is included. So we're going to be taking you to those doctor's appointments, to Walmart, to the grocery store, different places like that. And so especially if your kids are kind of spread out in the city, how much time is it taking for them to get you where you need to go? And how limited does that make you to not be able to go some of the places that you want to go because of their schedule? So if it's included in your community, then you can go wherever you want, and a lot of the things will be provided for you right there in the community, so you don't even have to go.
Okay, so I love that. So what I heard was Lori's thinking very much in terms of like your day-to-day bills and expenses, and so you need to be paying attention to those. And Julie's thinking very much in terms of making sure that you're then, when you talk to a community, you're making sure that what is included is actually in the contract, right? And then Jennifer is talking about some things that are maybe like future needs, that maybe you're not paying for transportation right now, maybe you're not paying for all of your meals right now, but that might be something you need to think about in the future. So I love that each one of our panelists has a very different and important aspect of what you as attendees, like that's your homework this week, is to be thinking about, what am I spending money on now? What do I need to make sure is covered if I decide to move to a community? And what might, if I decide to stay at home, what might be covered, what might I need to be paid for in the future? Yeah? So we're gonna be thinking about that this in the coming weeks as you guys are just paying attention to those details. All right, so our second truth, very few people pay with just one bucket. I have found this to be very true. So Lori, I'm gonna start with you. Let me switch my paper around. What buckets do you typically talk to people about having?
The primary bucket for my customers is investment income. So, we can go over the whole list. Social Security, most people have that. I think we're all a little bit concerned about what that looks like in the next 10 years. Some people have old-fashioned retirement pensions, and that's an important benefit, and that would include military pensions. Then, but investment income, interest and dividends off of what you've saved is an important bucket. But then the other bucket is the bucket of the investments and that you have themselves. So at some point for some people, the income off of those buckets isn't enough, and so we're actually looking at going into the bucket of investments themselves. And this is a point when I'm talking to customers that they often get kind of resistant, because what my kind, generous friends are thinking is that I've worked really hard and I wanted to save that. This is what I'm leaving for my children. Mm-hmm. And I ask people to think about that a different way. I think that you've worked really hard. This is a demographic that's been frugal and careful, and the point of that was to make sure that they were able to take care of themselves when they needed it. And this is their rainy day. They have reached this point. And I just have not. My experience dealing with lots and lots of families is I've not really had kids that I felt like were directing a decision based on trying to protect that nest egg. I don't see that. I think that the families that I deal with, they really want the parents to be in the right place and to have the right care. And if that means spending down that bucket of investments, I think everybody's okay with that. That's and I would encourage people to kind of get past the idea that you have to save. The legacy that you leave to your family is not in the dollars that you leave them. It's in the values that you share with them. And the other bucket that we haven't talked about is the home. People, when you sell your home, that's money that can be used to take care of a facility for months. Yes.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And typically that's where I step into the process, is making sure that people sell their home for as much as possible. And your home is such a big part of paying for senior. And there's a lot of people who have pretty good savings too. I would say that there's a lot of people who have that too. So, Julie, when you're sitting down and talking to people, where do you see most people pulling money from in order to pay to live in a senior community? And where are some places that maybe they haven't thought of or that they're not prioritizing?
Right. Well, obviously, as we said, the home, that is a really huge asset, and one that sometimes we don't really, because we've lived there for 30 or 40 years, we don't keep it in mind when we're thinking about how we're going to pay for something, right? And not all communities do this, but there are quite a few out there that will allow you to get settled, move in, and put your house on the market, and then use the assets from the sale to pay, for your move. So that's something that, or that you can draw down on that bucket of money once it's there.
And that's definitely a question to ask
Sure.
too. I
Absolutely.
mean, because in my opinion, and there's we've talked about downsizing so many times, but in my opinion, it's relatively unsafe to live in your home
I agree.
while it's on the market.
Yep.
If you are a senior, because I tell, this is what I tell my clients all the time. I can vouch for the agent that's coming in the door. They are licensed. They have certain criteria that they have to meet. Who I can't vouch for is that buyer that is coming with them that is seeing, oh, that's a walker. Oh, there's grab bars everywhere. Oh, and I mean, I just think that's unsafe. Personally, if you can move into your community first and then sell your home, it's typically a much safer situation and less stressful too.
That's what I was going to add. Absolutely safer. And then on top of that, let's just be honest. If you've lived in your house for 30 or 40 years, the idea of moving is overwhelming. Like that is just like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? But if you flip it and you say, okay, what are my non-negotiables? What are the things that I absolutely would take with me? Let's start there. Put green dots on those things. We know they're going, okay? And that's got a home. So once you get settled, then you can figure out, and there's some things that have yellow dots because you're not really sure if they'll fit or if you need them or whatever, then you can come back and negotiate on those after you make your move, right? So it does make the process a lot easier. So, yeah.
If that's possible, if the situation is possible where you can make the move and then sell the home, I think that's ideal because one thing we always say to the clients that we're working with is make this move, and if it's not right for you, then go home. And we'll figure it
exactly.
out. So any place that'll help, that'll allow you to do that, that's going to be a real advantage.
Absolutely. Almost all of us have a 30-day out. Like if you're not happy, we don't want you to be unhappy. We want this to be a good decision.
Sometimes it's that safety blanket too, right? Like if I hate it, I can go home. All right. So Jennifer, did you have another one, Julie?
The only other thing I was going to say is long-term care insurance.
Yes.
We always ask that question, and that's a big piece of the puzzle that people don't think about because we offer multiple levels of care on one property. That is a piece that's going to be factored into your contract, like what makes sense for you.
I'm just curious, how many of you have long-term care insurance? Good. Yeah. Good. You are lucky ducks.
Yeah, you are.
That's not really going to be an option for people of my generation. So that's fantastic. Okay.
Keep in mind, though, that long-term care insurance almost never pays for independent living.
Correct.
It's going to be assisted living, memory care, care levels like that. Now, what long-term care insurance may pay for, depending on your particular policy, is that extra help that can come into an apartment or into your home. And it's actually a good idea to investigate that and to go ahead and open a claim with that kind of help, because you do pay out of pocket for 60 or 90 days before they start to finally pay all of that money that you've been paying all of these years. And if you can open that claim with that smaller amount, if you move into an assisted living, you might be paying, 3 months worth of $7,000 or $8,000. If you did it with in-home care, then you might be paying just $1,000 a month or something for those first 90 days. That also would be, you could move into the independent living community and use that long-term care insurance to pay for those extra things that you might need. And then when you need to move over to assisted living, then it will kick right in and you'll not have a bill for that they'll pay for that rent for you.
I love that you said that too, because a lot of people have that hard line between independent living and then assisted living. But if you talk to an independent living community, what they'll tell you a lot of times is, and you have to balance your budget, right? Like you have to think about at what point does paying for in-home care offset the cost, and it would be smarter for me to just shift to assisted living. But you can have that independent living and then have a supplement of in-home care to kind of carry you through until the cost offsets and you really do need to be in assisted living. So keep that in mind. There's lots. Like I said, every single person in this room has a specific circumstance that will be perfect for you specifically. So know that you have lots of options. I want to talk about the very confusing topic of Medicare, Medicaid, and all of those things. So I talk to a lot of people who say, oh, well, I'm just going to use Medicare, or, oh, I'm just going to use Medicaid. So let's talk about that. Lori, do you have that conversation with people?
We do have that conversation, and that's not a good plan for most people.
I agree.
Is the baseline.
Write that on your white sheet. That's not a good plan.
Medicare only pays for a few days, and you guys know better than me, a few days of skilled nursing after there's been a hospitalization, and you guys will correct me if I'm getting this wrong. So that, that's a short-term answer after some kind of event. Medicaid will step in. That's a safety net that society provides, but that's after we've spent the money that we have access to. So that's after all your income, almost all of your income goes to it, any kind of savings, your home equity, all those other buckets after we've spent down those buckets. So sometimes people come to me and say, I want to figure out how to set this trust up to make sure that I save it for my kids if I have to go to the nursing home. And there are a few situations where there's a special needs child at home or a spouse that's going to need some extra care, but basically that's why we have all worked and saved, is to take care of ourselves when we need it. And we're not I don't really work with people that are trying to
Yeah.
This is the Truth Series, right?
This is the Truth Series. So we're going to have a candid, compassionate conversation. I'm actually, I sometimes when people are needing to go the Medicaid option and do their spin down, they will contact me to do it's called a BPO. It's a broker price opinion, and I've got to do that on their house because we have to turn in some opinions of price on the house if like a family member is going to buy it. Because listen, once the government gets involved, it gets, we'll say, squirrely. So we've got to kind of navigate that correctly. How does Medicaid, Medicare come into your world, Julie?
So we are a Medicare community, but we are not a Medicaid community. So, and again, I told you our community offers benevolent care. So if somebody outlives their assets, we care for them for life. That's our promise. And so we have funds set aside for that because we're a nonprofit faith-based community. A lot of communities don't have that resource. So they do have a Medicaid option for nursing care, but that is a long list, and there aren't very many of them. So just beware that if that is your game plan, you might want to go ahead and get on the list now, because
and it looks like there's going to be less of them.
Absolutely.
That funding is going away.
The number of people aging by 2030, we will have more people over 65 than under the age of 18. Okay, so
can we just sit on that for just a minute?
Yeah.
Can you guys say that again?
Yeah. By 2030, which is how many years from now? 4 years from now, more people will be over 65 than under 18 in the United States. And Oklahoma statistics, I think it's like 44% or something. It's more than the national average.
Yeah.
So I say that because it's important for us to realize that if your plan A is to stay at home and you got that game plan and it's great, something changes, plan B needs to go into effect and you decide you do need to move, there may be a wait list and you may not be able to get in. And then if you're depending on Medicaid on top of that, that's even more of a risk. So just be aware of what's available at each community level, and if you find a community that does offer Medicaid for those that they outlive their assets and they're ready to go on Medicaid and it's a Medicaid community and you're already there, you're going to have priority over somebody that's not.
Yeah, I love that. Jennifer, how does that come into play in your world, Medicaid, Medicare, those conversations?
We have people asking every day if we accept those things, and we don't. We're not Medicaid or Medicare certified, but we do encourage people to keep in mind that even with a Medicaid community, you do still have to spend all of your money with them before they start paying it for you. So a lot of times people will move into a place like Village on the Park and spend all of their money with us so that they can then move to a place where it can be provided for them. Because either way, you're spending that money every month. But we're talking about the difference between an independent living or an assisted living and a nursing home. And so to get those years of a really good quality experience, while you can, it's just important for people to know that you're still going to pay thousands of dollars every month at a Medicaid place until you're out of your money.
Yep, I love that. And the other big conversation that I have, and we'll just touch on it and move on, but VA benefits. I do talk to a lot of people who utilize their VA benefits, and that is fantastic. And thank you so much for your service. In fact, I know a lot of people who are utilizing their VA benefits that a lot of the health journey that they're on is directly related to their service for our country. And so those benefits are so important, and we're thankful that they are there. There are some documents that you need to make sure that you have. And if you are a surviving spouse of a veteran, there are some documents that you need to have too. And please do not, if you're a surviving spouse of a veteran, do not. I have a lot of clients that are like, I don't want to do that. It wasn't mine. It was his. And please utilize that. There are going to be some additional documents that you need to get, and we are happy to hook you up with someone who can help you walk through that, but make sure that you have them set aside. Are there any other documents that people need to have before, as far as these buckets go, beforehand?
I would say if for those of you who raised your hand on the long-term care insurance policy, make sure you know where that policy is, not just the cover sheet, that you know where it actually is, and if you don't, ask for another copy.
And the same with life insurance. If this is happening as a result of a death, there's lots of times we can't find the life insurance policy, so that's important.
Yeah. So Village on the Park, or not Village on the Park, my stars, Village OKC has a binder so if you're a member of Villages OKC, they have a binder called The Gift, and a lot of those documents go in that. If you have questions, please visit Village OKC after this, because they can give you information on that. But I've even heard of people who they have prepaid for their funeral, but their children didn't know, and so they paid for the funeral and then find the documentation when they're cleaning out the house. So just make sure that all of that stuff is together. Jennifer, yeah?
I would say for VA benefits as well, really talk to somebody who really knows what they're doing and let them help you navigate those forms. And they are very, very picky about the way that those forms are filled out, and they will just get completely thrown out if they're not done correctly. And then you have to start the whole process all over again. There are benefits for a lot of our veterans. It's not an automatic. It does depend on when you served, how long you served, all of those kinds of things. Unfortunately, it should just be a benefit for everyone, but it's not. So there does have to be a financial need and things like that. So talk to somebody who really knows what they're talking about and let them help you fill out those forms, because if you can do that, then you'll be a lot more likely to get the benefits that you deserve.
Could I tag on
Of
that
course,
and
yeah.
go back to something? If Medicaid is part of your planning, make sure that you talk to somebody that really knows what they're doing. This is not something you want to do yourself. People can get into real trouble trying to gift, and we've all seen that happen. So if that is something that you think that might work for your family or is necessary for your family, that's a real specialized area of law, and find somebody that knows what they're doing to help you with that.
Thank you so much. Yes, 100%. And I know that in this room, many of you understand the difference between Medicaid and Medicare, because, I mean, Medicare is insurance, so many of you are using that. Please know that your adult children do not understand. They do not understand the difference. They don't understand when this steps in and what the repercussions are. So your kids don't know. Your grandkids certainly don't know. So just know that while it's clear, crystal clear to you, because it's part of your day-to-day life, many of you, it is not clear to people who are under 50. So, okay. All right. So the next one, avoiding decisions is a decision. Not deciding is deciding, but it has a cost to it. So planning early, you typically have more options, more control, less stress. Waiting for crisis, you have fewer options. less control, more stress. We see it every day. So where do you see that, Lori?
I saw that in my own family. My mother loved her two-story home with the bedroom and the bathroom upstairs. And as much as my dad talked to her about that, she was not willing to. She was set. This was her home. That's where till she carried her out. Then she broke her hip. And while she was in the rehab center, my dad installed the lift chair on the stairs. And it was ugly, and she cried when she got home, but that was because she'd waited for a crisis. That's what she ended up with. And so the time to make those plans is when you can make them, and we encourage people to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Where did the two of you see people land, and the difference between planning ahead and waiting, particularly with the financial side of things, too?
I think if people make the decision to move it, especially when they're mostly independent, if you make a decision to move into a community while you're independent, 9 times out of 10 you will stay independent so much longer. So you look at the cost of assisted living and even memory care, and it's just astronomical sometimes, and it just doesn't feel like it's something that you're ever going to be able to do. So get on the front end of that, and you'll be eating better, you'll be moving more, you'll be socializing. That is going to help you to age better, and so you'll stay independent for so many more years, and it will save you money from the assisted living and memory care side over time. I think also people just don't think about the cost of making their home appropriate for all of the aids that you're going to need. Like, that's just all money that you're spending anyway. So come to a place where it's done for you.
Yeah. Julie?
I think I would just add, because I completely concur with both of them. That's exactly what I would say. So the only thing I could add to it is that when you make a decision, be an educated consumer. That's why we host these things, is for you to be aware of what your options are. As you said, no decision is a decision. I share a story about my uncle. He lived in a community that offered all of the bells and whistles, but he felt he was going to outlive his assets, so he decided to move into a 55-plus community. He did have a long-term care insurance policy, so I didn't really agree that that was the right decision, but it was his decision. So I said, as long as we understand that this isn't your last move, and you don't get to complain if they tell you you can't stay here. You can't complain if they sell this, because it's an apartment complex and it's a venture capital situation. It will switch hands, and whatever they promised you is going to change. So just know that. As long as we're on the same page and we understand that, and we understand we're being an educated consumer and this is the choice we're making, then we're good. But there's a cost for that. If you don't have that conversation, if you don't with yourself or with somebody else, you have to understand what your choices are costing others, not just yourself.
Yeah,
Piggybacking on that, I think it's a gift to your kids. It's a gift to your family for you to get to make these choices for yourself instead of waiting for them to have to make these choices for you. And even moving from your home, all of the choices that you're making of what to take and what to get rid of, that's a gift to them, to not have to do that while they're grieving. You know, if they lose you and they have to deal with your home, then they're having to do that on top of having lost you. So if you get to do all of that before, when it's your choice, you get to be in the driver's seat, you get to make the choice for yourself, you get to pick your community, you get to decide to do it now instead of later, you get to know what you bring with you, and give those things to your kids now if they want them. They might not want them.
Man, how many times have we talked about that? That's so smart. Yeah, over and over. So quickly about, your action for this point, for this truth, is visiting communities and seeing what's out there. Let's talk about wait lists real fast. So let's say I'm on a wait list and my name comes up and I'm not ready to move. Do you show up at the house and say, you got to go, come with me, pack your bag?
No. No, the way this works is you are on the list. You get called, hey, we have that 2-bedroom that faces the south that you wanted, or whatever it is. And if you say, well, we're not ready yet, okay, great. Well, would you like us to check back in with you? Yes, I would. Okay, great. We put you back on the list. Not the bottom of the list. You just go back on the list. That's all it is.
Jennifer, how do you guys handle that?
We'll call you the next time something comes available. For us, having independent living, assisted living, and memory care, our assisted living stays full because we give priority to the independent people who need to move over. So that's another benefit of going ahead and moving into independent living, adding some help if you need to, and then you have priority to move over when it's time. So, and we have, just the other day, I called 7 independent living residents on that list, and they were like, oh no, I'm great. I'm good right now. I want to stay on the list, but call me next time. So just because we have a long list doesn't mean you're not going to get your spot soon. A lot of people put themselves on the list when they've had a hospital stay or a fall or a decline of some kind, and by the time we call them, they're feeling much better and doing great. So
I just want to add to that if you have communicated with your family that you're on a list, make sure they understand what that means, because we have a crisis and then they call and they say, but mom's on the list. I understand, but we still don't have an apartment.
Yeah.
Like she's not on a
It's
list.
not a- yeah.
I'm interested list. It's a you're on the list when we have
Wait
something
list.
come open.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, I love that. So I think that's always something nice to say, that if you find some place that you think, you know what, when I get ready, this is something that I think I would like to pursue. You can be on a list and they can call you, and if something is not available, it doesn't mean anything. You can just say, we have a lot of people who do that actually. They get on a list and they just say, you know what, I'm still okay. I will say, one of the things that I see from my end for people who don't get on a list and they do need to do that, I see a lot, and I'm dealing with this, I could probably pull every file I have right now, but a lot of deferred home maintenance, and that does start to deteriorate the value of your home. So just be aware of that. When you're not able to take care of your home anymore, you need to at least have funds set aside to take care of that at some point. But anyway, I will say that.
can I just add one more thing?
I
Is that
guess.
okay? So when we have people that go on the wait list, oftentimes it's because they're not ready yet. That's the terminology we hear, is I'm not ready yet. So all I ask when I visit with a client is to sit with yourself and figure out what ready looks like. Define ready. Because if you're just not ready yet, you need to know what ready looks like. And if it's decline, then you may not be looking at the right community. Because if you wait until you're declined, and this is something that we were both talking about, if you move into independent living and you are able to stay in your apartment in independent living because you moved in when you were healthy and active and you've just aged in place there, you might see people when you take a tour on a walker because they've lived there for 9 years. They were your age when they moved in. They didn't have the walker then, right? So they moved and got ready. Yeah, if ready is decline, after they made the move. So I just share that as a point of reference. So.
Yes, and I think also just planning ahead, because we're talking about the costs and things like that. Planning ahead and thinking about this in terms of your budget is so important, but also thinking about planning ahead as an act of love, maybe for your spouse, maybe for yourself, maybe for your family members. I've got a really sweet client right now where she's perfectly able-bodied, like she could live in her home on acreage with her beautiful pond and mature trees. She could live there for quite a lot longer. Her husband, however, is starting to have some health issues and some falls and some things like that happening, and she doesn't want to leave. It's not a fun decision. It's really, really not. And they're not moving to a community. They're downsizing into an active adults community right now, just to kind of shrink things down where he's not out trimming tree limbs for when we have weather like we've had recently. And so she doesn't want to do that. but she loves her spouse. So she's doing that for him. And sometimes planning ahead and looking at your finances is part of that. All right, so I wanted to add one, so I was going to stick with our 3 truths. We'll hit this one real quick because as we were doing our panel prep, this is something that kept coming up in the conversation. So I thought we need to have this conversation because you guys are seeing this frequently. Parents and adult children carry different fears. So unless you are really the only member of your family, you have other people who are giving you their thoughts and their ideas and their motivations. And so we need to think about things from other people's perspectives as well so that you can move forward with this. So parent fears, the notes that I took when we were talking, were losing independence, losing control of your situation, and being a burden on someone. The adult children that you all are talking to are having different fears, like making the wrong call, making the wrong decision for your parent, causing family conflict. Different siblings have different ideas as far as what is best. Some siblings that live further away may think mom and dad are able to do things that they can't do because they don't see it every day, and the sibling that lives closer might be pulling their hair out saying, no, they cannot do this. This is so hard, and you don't see it every day. And then, of course, if you have no children, those children are maybe feeling, I'm not close enough to watch, and I'm worried about you daily. So as we get into that, just quickly, Lori, what fears do you have people talking to you about, and how do you bridge those, how do you have that conversation to bridge those fears?
Yeah, I think I touched on it a minute ago. The fear that I hear a lot is I've saved this for my children. It's really important that I have something to leave to my children. And what we say is that this is what your children want you to do. This is why you save, to be able to take care of yourself, and that is maintaining your independence by using the resources that you've accumulated purposely. Then you can that helps you maintain your independence, and my experience is that that's what kids want their parents to do.
Well, I agree. And also, I don't talk to very many adult children who, they want those resources to be used. The arguments that I hear, honestly, are after someone has passed away, and then they're arguing about the money. So, that is not fun. Please don't do that to your kids. It's really not a fun conversation.
And the other way to fix that is to do your estate planning, and not to go online and do it. And that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But
Google does not hold. Google has never passed the bar. Can you believe it? So maybe Google's not a good option for estate planning. Okay. Or ChatGPT. Yeah, ChatGPT has also not passed the Oklahoma bar. So anyway, Julie, what fears are you talking to or people about and bridging that gap between kids and adult parents?
Yeah, I think there's a fear of conversation, right?
Okay.
So, and I always joke around about this, but it's real that you're the parent and you say, okay, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this. I've got my pre-planned funeral. Mom, oh my God, you just turned 75. Why do you think you're dying? What the heck? They won't hear it, right? That's so morbid. Why are you talking about that? Or on the other side, the kid says, hey, I just got this information about life insurance for my husband and I, and we were going to da-da-da-da-da, and what, do you think I'm dying? Oh my God, so you can't win the situation.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a fear to have a conversation. So I think that if we can just say, hey, we need to have a very difficult conversation. We're both going to be uncomfortable for about 30 minutes, but we're going to do this. We're tough. We can do this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
my experience is that that's really one of the hardest things that families face. Everybody expects to have to deal with teenagers that get in trouble or young people, but you don't expect to have to parent your parents. And making that shift, that's hard for families. It's hard for children. It's hard for the parents. And I think that's just where you have to offer grace and just have the 30-minute conversation.
And I will say, the sooner you have a conversation and the clearer you are about your plan, you won't have to be parented by your kid.
Yeah.
They aren't put in that position, right?
Yeah.
Because you've been clear about what you want, why you want it, how you want it, and defined it all, and you have autonomy in that, and that gives them the parent-child relationship stays.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because all of those fears on the parent side, all you have to do is right now, while you are still able-bodied and of sound mind, you make these decisions for yourself. You get to be in the driver's seat. You get to have control over all of those things, and your kids' fears don't even happen when you've made the call for them. And they just know, okay, this is what you're choosing, and you can. Tomorrow might be a totally different story, so don't put off having those conversations, because none of us know a stroke or any kind of a setback could happen, and we really do. It is so uncomfortable to have those conversations, but we just have to all suck it up and just do it.
I agree, and I think also, like, we all feel 35 in our mind, right? Like, we all look around and we're like, how did we get here already, right? I mean, I was talking to my mom about something, and she was like, you don't understand. You don't understand. You are in your 40s. Like, you don't understand what it's like to feel this way and feel like you can do these things, and somebody tell you that you should. It's very frustrating. And so I do think that there's that mindset shift of like, in my day-to-day life, I'm the same person I was in my 30s and 40s. Why do I have to make these choices now? I don't want to do that right now.
I want to step back something that you said about legacy and how people want to leave a legacy to their family. And this, I just want to pose this because with Villages OKC, I'm a board member for that organization, and we proudly encourage people to age positively, to just
whether in a
embrace
community
it,
or at home.
to just embrace it, okay? You get to define what age looks like, but the legacy you could leave is how to age well. Instead of dollars, it could be an example. And if most of us have a family member that, if we've never had to be a caregiver, we don't understand the decline of health and what that does to our loved ones. If our family members just died and they were gone, we never really watched that. We never really experienced that or the burden that it can be. So that's another piece to the puzzle as far as paying attention to how you respond to aging.
All right, so here are your discussion questions that I would like for you to think about having with your financial advisor, whoever manages your finances for you, and also your family members, to just kind of discussion points. So you're going to be thinking about, what are we spending now? So that's the very boots on the ground logistics side of things. You need to know, what are you spending? And most of you do know what you're spending, but spend some time really brainstorming about, what am I not thinking about? And then you might think about future, what help might be needed, what help is out there. And one thing we didn't talk about a whole lot is, what is that house for? And what I mean by this question is that your investment? Many of my clients, their house is their retirement plan, so to speak. That is where the majority of that equity is. I would say that's just a question to think about. Like, what do I want this house for? Am I selling it so that I can live where I want to live for as long as I want to live there? Or am I wanting to gift it to a family member? Things like that. What is the plan for our home and for that real estate investment? What other money buckets exist? What are some things that we haven't tapped into? Maybe you need to talk to someone who can help you with your VA benefits. And in our office, we have a really great contact for that. So if you'd like to be connected with that person, please let us know. But what money is out there that you haven't thought about? And then what conversations are we avoiding? What conversations need to be had with family members that you're avoiding? What peace can you bring? How can you love yourself and love your family better? So these are good conversations for us to have. Before we move on, do you guys have anything to add to this? Is there anything that I didn't cover? Okay, fantastic. All right, so before we do Q&A, I do want to remind you, if this conversation has made you think of someone that maybe they couldn't make it, maybe they live a little bit further out, maybe they want to age in place at home so they didn't come today, we definitely talked about some of those things, right? And so you can share our YouTube channel with them. All of our seminars are on our YouTube channel, and we do a really good job of getting them posted within about 2 weeks. And we will let you know on our Facebook page that it has been posted. So if you're not following us on Facebook, you need to, because we let people know of upcoming events and seminars and things, and we also let you know when our seminars have been posted on YouTube. If you're not a QR person, you must not have been here for COVID, because that's how we got our menus at that point. But if you're not a QR person, you can grab any member of my staff or any of our education partners, and they will be able to help you find on Facebook, on your Facebook app on your phone, how to follow us, or you can always reach out to me at our office, and we're absolutely happy to answer those questions. So we do have a couple of mic runners. I do want to do some Q&A just real quick. We have time for a few questions. Remember, this is for questions. If you have a question, I want you to raise your hand. If you have a comment, I want you to find me afterwards, because I want to hear your comment or your story. This time is for questions. Do I have any questions out here? Where am I? Who is a mic runner for me? Oh, Anna's a mic runner. Does anybody have a question? Yep, we've got one in the back.
You mentioned that you need to get help if you needed filling out forms. Who would those people be to contact about help with filling out forms?
Are you talking about VA benefits or?
VA?
What, like long-term?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good question. There is a company called Right at Home, and Greg Self is the owner of that company in Oklahoma City, and that is my go-to guy for veteran form people. He just is very knowledgeable and has done it quite a bit, and so he knows a lot of the ins and outs of what's expected. So I can get you his contact information for VA benefits. I don't know about the Medicaid
I have VA. I have a good VA contact, and Homewell that is here as an education partner. I know that they're very knowledgeable about getting people hooked up as well. And I would say additionally, if you'll just give me a call, I can get you hooked up with some people. But like Navigating Medicare, they can help with some of that as well. Navigating Medicare is a great education partner, and we're so thankful that they've chosen to partner with us. So they'll be able to point you in the right direction for some of that as well. But yeah, I would say write that on your form, and we'll get you hooked up with the right person. Any other questions? Yep. Anna's coming with the mic.
All right. First of all, thank you for the valuable information. You mentioned the cost range for someone coming into your home, but I didn't hear any cost ranges for the different levels of care. I know it's more confusing than that, but just ranges.
Sure. No, I love that. So I know that Album, what do you guys start at? Album's not here because she's sick. I want to say they start somewhere in the neighborhood of like $1,400 a month. Oh, yes, and Southwest Mansions, where are you? How much are you? What is it? $30.95 a month for all inclusive, and that's all the meals and everything. So that's kind of what we're seeing on that. Do you ladies want to speak to some of what you've seen in the market as far as pricing? I knew we would get that question, so thank you for asking. We'll do the best we can. Go ahead.
Well, assisted living is going to probably start in the $5,000 to $6,000 range, and then a lot of assisted livings will have different levels of care. So you'll pay your rent price for all of the amenities and the 24/7 oversight, and then depending on what you need help with, your level of care might look different, so it will be added onto your rent price.
Right. I would agree with that. And I think what I tell people is it's like going on a car lot and going, how much is a car? There's a lot of answers to that question. So it's not that we're trying to evade the question. It's very complicated. And I think the big thing is what's included. So when they quote you a price or you see a price, ask what's included in that, because there are some assisted living and memory cares out there that'll tell you it's $3,000 a month, but that's just for the apartment they're staying in. That doesn't include everything else. like their meal in their apartment, and that's it. So if you've got medication and bathing and all those things, that's not included. So just make sure you know when you ask what the cost is.
Yeah.
But the ranges are the same, yeah.
Yeah, I have seen, you know, some 55 plus communities be very comparable to what you would pay, because you're still paying for your food and for all of those things. But then once food and activities and transportation and those things start coming into being covered, that's when you start to see those prices go up. And that is why it is so important that you continue to really put that budget on what you're actually spending every month together. Lori, do you have anything to add to that? No? Okay. All right. That's great. Anna, we'll take one more.
You have mentioned going on wait list. Is there a charge to go on a wait list? Or,
Oh, that's a great question.
and can you be on wait lists at more than one community?
Yes, yeah, you absolutely can be on more than one wait list for sure. And I can only speak for Concordia as far as our wait list. We have a couple of different options. We have what's called early acceptance, and that's for people that they're done shopping. They know that when they move, they're moving to Concordia. They're done with that. So they do pay upfront a percentage of what their fee would be to secure a spot, and they have a year to 5 years to make a decision, depending on what option they're interested in. But other communities, it may be a $1,000 community fee, and then you get it back if you don't move in, or, you know. Yeah.
Almost all communities will have some sort of a community fee, and when you put that community fee down, you're holding a specific apartment. But to get on the wait list for us, we don't necessarily require that community fee, but if you want to put that community fee down, then it's already in place. You won't ever have to pay that again, and it will bump you to the top of the outside waiting list.
I love that. Okay, so I want to ask each of you to hang around for questions afterwards because, do we have one more? Okay, let's do it. Joan, yeah, you're good. Hi.
My question was actually what he asked, so that's great. The other question is for real estate, and I want to be on a list for 3 to 5 years, but do you sell your home right away if you lose a spouse? Or I've heard that you should stay there for at least 6 months or more.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's good to see you, by the way. But I will say that I did have one client who she lost her spouse, and she called me the very next month, and she said, I need to move. And for that situation, I really encouraged her to stay and find her new normal. And for that specific situation, knowing her and talking her through it, she really needed to figure out who she was and where and all of that. However, I will tell you one thing that I have seen is, and I know that each of these ladies have seen this as well, is that a lot of times spouses will mask things for each other. And so one spouse might be incredibly able-bodied and the other one maybe less so, and one of them very cognitively sharp and the other one less so. And they start to meet each other's needs and maybe not even intentionally mask, but they lean on each other for help. And in situations like that, where someone has maybe lost the ability to be taken care of by that spouse, safety purposes, cognitive purposes, sometimes it's beneficial for them to go ahead and move. So I think that's very case by case, and I would love to talk to anyone about that and answer their questions, because I am one that because of that additional, I think a lot of real estate agents are trying to just come, yep, let's sell your house, let's do it right now. But because of that additional training that I have, one of the things that my office is very good about is saying, maybe we stay a little bit. Maybe we stay in your home, figure out what normal looks like for you. Maybe this is where you need to be for a long time, but maybe not. And it's very much based on the person. So, all right, so you guys hang around. Again, I want you to please visit our education partners. They all have great materials on their table for you. Thank you so much. Can we thank my panelists, please?